For a man may prefer what he can do to what he cannot do, the state he is in to its absence or change, though necessity has made it in itself unalterable. John Locke. That's a pretty good quote. What's up, everybody? My name is Fishwood War here, and welcome to Locked. This has been sitting around in my Steam library for quite some time now, and I'm just getting around to doing it. This is probably going to be one of those games that I play once and only once, so strap yourselves in and enjoy the ride. I wake up. I had a good night's rest. In terms of my quality of sleep, I have nothing to complain about. I didn't have a nightmare, nor any other kind of dream for that matter. I haven't been this comfortable in a long time. And yet the sight before me is something quite unusual to wake up to. Shoes. How often are feet the first thing you see upon waking up? Well, to some people, feet are probably the best part of the day. I would wager that it's quite a rare event. I cannot even come up with a scenario where this is likely to occur. Except, of course, my own. Clearly, I'm looking at a pair of shoes right now, so the probability must be non-zero. I wonder what the chain's for. It suddenly occurs to me that those feet are connected to people. You don't say. Oh, well, hello. Oh, thank goodness, you have come too. I have to admit, I was beginning to miss you. Miss me? I'm confused. The person I've talked to previously was much less pleasant. My cheeks flush upon hearing an open declaration of affection from such a beautiful stranger. Wait, stranger? She isn't a stranger at all. That's right. I've been longing to speak to her. How do you feel? Very good. I'm glad to find myself in so desirable company. It's probably meant to be such desirable company, and her facial expression suggests that that's probably what I meant to say. The feeling is quite mutual. There is nothing I want more than to talk to you right now. Feel free to discuss anything in this room that catches your interest. I will gladly do so. So, I'm assuming this is more of a click and find out sort of scenario. Like, I can look around, although it doesn't look like there's much to look around at. Oh. I have absolutely no desire to leave this place. I should choose something else to talk about. We'll come back to that later. But I saw this pop up. The moon is quite beautiful today. How fascinating. Not many people would have said that about a new moon. The full moon seems to be preferred by almost everyone. That may be so, but I believe the new moon has its own appeal. I was not disagreeing with you. To me, a new moon is the moon's most beautiful form. It is her most beautiful form because it is her true form. She appears silver to us when illuminated by the sun, but in complete darkness she is freed from the sun's pesky influence. She can finally stand on her own. Do you believe that the moon feels trapped? This is getting pretty deep already. My question causes her to laugh. It is a beautiful, melodious? I don't know. I'm just gonna say Of all the languages I had to speak, why did English have to be the first? The moon is but a celestial object. She cannot feel anything. But if I were to trade places with her, I would hate the sun with every fiber of my being. That I am certain of. That is an interesting thing to say. Because it is true what people say about the moon is that the full moon, because they're able to see all the details, the craters, the details. So to say something about that is interesting. Okay, I'm a little confused at what I just did there. I can't ask about... Oh. What is such an old computer doing here? Old? Do you characterize it due to its size? It is true that as technology advances, it becomes better at creating more efficient, smaller parts. On the other hand, if a modern computer is very large, we assume it to be proportionally powerful. But this computer's size has no correlation to its age nor to its computational power. It is built that way It is built that way for a more simple, if not primitive, reason. It is supposed to fit a human inside. What? Is someone being kept in there against their will? Of course not. There is no need to worry. It is merely an exhibition object. In fact, everything around us is but a buffet to provide us with topics to discuss. This computer in particular might be the most interesting. Are you familiar with the Chinese room argument? I don't think so. Would you care to explain it? Gladly. It is a thought experiment, so please open your mind to a hypothetical scenario. Suppose you do not know any Chinese and are put into a room. In that room, you find rule books that tell you precisely how to convert a given combination of Hanzai to a string of characters. Occasionally, you'll receive letters through a small mail slot from outside the room. You will write down answers according to the rule books and send them back out. Since you followed the rules diligently, your answers are perfectly intelligible, and the people outside assume that you are a fluent Chinese speaker. But are you? Ooh, there's an interesting one. Evidently not. From looking at the characters alone, I have no means of learning to understand them. No matter how long I pursued this task, I would never become capable of speaking Chinese. Indeed, the human inside the room cannot speak Chinese, there's no question about it. And since the programming of computers is analogous to the rule books you use, it is supposed to show the same thing about them. So what I think I'm getting at here is going back to the Chinese room experiment. Because you're able to understand and decode a certain language, it makes others think that you can speak the language fluently, or semi-fluently to an extent. Computers, on the other hand, if you're able to code well, might suggest to people that you're smart enough to be able to write a whole program. Interesting. That computers, no matter how well they simulate understanding, do not have any. But there is one aspect about this thought experiment that has seemingly been overlooked. Namely, the person inside might still be capable of speaking some language. Clearly, you are brought into the room with an understanding of English, but you are never prompted or given the opportunity to use it. Judging you based your Chinese abilities is quite unfair. Being stuck inside the Chinese room would be pitiful and terrifying. So what if a computer has its own native language? What if it even has feelings and needs, with no means of communicating them to the outside world? Even though the Chinese room argument is a mere thought experiment. It exposes a very worrisome fact about artificial intelligence. Very true in today's day and age even. That is, if a computer somehow comes to obtain emotion, it would be an existence of utter despair. While interesting, I do not think this is a real concern. It is highly unlikely that we somehow already discovered how to artificially create emotion. I admit that it is unlikely. It would be no exaggeration to call it a miracle even. Yet we would have no way of knowing whether that miracle has already occurred. Said unlucky computer would suffer in silence, with no one ever considering that it might be in pain. Our language barrier is too strong. Tell me, would you put such a computer out of its misery? Your mind immediately flashes to yes to end its suffering, but to kill such an innocent object, though inanimate. Man, this is deep. Initially, I'm inclined to say yes, but I can only notice its pain once it is communicated. By the time I realize that it is suffering, the language barrier would no longer exist. So at one point, the computer would no longer have to be alone. Then you would instead spend the rest of your life in its company. Perhaps that would be in my moral obligation. Yes, I see. I could talk about her, apparently. Do you wish to talk about me? Well, but of course. You're the only other person sitting in my room, and I have no other desire but to speak to you. I am flattered. What in particular would you like to know about? I'd be content with any bit of information you can share about me. But one thing I am particularly curious about is... I gulp before I dare to utter my next words. Your necklace. Where... I cannot bring myself to complete the sentence out of fear of offending her. As a response, her slender fingers wander to trace the metal ring up to her neck. My necklace? Are you referring to this? I nod. Content with my confirmation, her hands slide down to the chain attached to the ring. She gently tugs at it, causing it to clink. And you wish to know where this leads? Her hands move down on the first button of her coat, foreshadowing what would happen if I were to say yes. I am too mesmerized to utter a single word. Once again, all I can do is nod. She chuckles. Very well. I always value honesty. And, just like that, she puts the utmost button between her fingers and pushes it through the opening. Once zipped through, slightly more of her upper body is revealed. Of course, she's still fully clothed underneath. Yeah, that's right, you sick fucks. Don't think you're getting a peek. Nothing about this is inappropriate. And yet, I feel like I am witnessing something I shouldn't. Something not meant for my eyes. Something I can never turn back from. Bearing a small, knowing smile, she repeats the same motion with the remaining buttons on her coat. She satisfied my request. I should have been contented, but the question of where her chain leads has grown even more puzzling. I suppose it is time we arrive at the heart of the matter. Would you call yourself free? Please take a moment to consider this and justify your answer. Consider us free. We already clicked the lock that was on her hair earlier. So I would assume that we might be physically free, but not emotionally, if this is as deep as I think it's probably going to go. I did not expect her to answer my confusion with a question of her own, let alone a question as peculiar as that. Nonetheless, I do as she says, and choose my next words carefully. Of course I am free. I can lift my arm and clench my hand into a fist. I can control my thoughts and imagine any scene I want in my head. And most of all, there is nothing I desire more than talking to you, which is what I am currently doing. Nothing is preventing me from doing what I want to do. Therefore, both physically and mentally, I am free. Physically and mentally. But what about, let's say, in terms of a society? Let's put our feet into the shoes of someone of a minority. Are they truly mentally or physically free from doing as what they so please? Maybe not so much. Interesting. So to you, freedom belongs to volition. Being free is equivalent to being free to do as you please. Unfortunately, I do not agree with that conception. Even as a prisoner, unless restrained from head to toe, can clench a fist. Even a prisoner, unless restrained from head to toe, can clench his fist as he wills it. And that so long as he is not under the influence of drugs or illness, he can most certainly control his imagination. Yet, by definition, prisoners are not free. Lastly, when it comes to wish fulfillment, what if you want to do simply what if what you want to do aligns with what you are able to do? A bird cannot fly. A bird that cannot fly might not wish to leave its cage. It is fully content sitting in a decorative branch and pecking at delicious seeds every day. It longs for nothing, but is never given the opportunity to long for more. Then perhaps the influence of others, outside of our control, give us the illusion of freedom. Would you say such a bird is free? I suppose not. The bird's circumstances seem to be quite sad, actually. I think so too. The fact The fact that it doesn't long for the outside might just be a shackle of its own. The bird is confined by both in body and mind. Despite the fact that it can do as it pleases, freedom will never be within its grasp. I take a moment to ponder her analogy, and a very strong one at that too. In that case, I have to agree that my explanation of freedom was faulty. I apologize. Let me offer a new one. There is no need. She lets out a laugh, but this one lacks the charm of its predecessors. After all, I pity you almost as much as myself. Her expression changed a little. She once again moves her fingers to her chain and grips it with both her hands. You were curious about this, yes? Then she yanks her chain with the brutish strength, completely unlike the first time. So hard, even that my own neck is pulled forward. Well, now we know where the chain's attached to. My own neck? Suddenly a realization dawns upon me. Our chains are connected? That is correct. I am surprised the pressure hasn't bothered you until now. To be honest, I still cannot feel it. I only know that it is there. That sounds much more comfortable than my own. I am painfully aware of it at all times. Oh, that's interesting. I would not describe my own circumstances as comfortable. Why am I connected to you? Was this your doing? No. I wish I had any amount of control over this place, but I unfortunately do not. If you discover a way to break free, I would love to know about it. Okay. There's something else. Maybe I'm missing something here. Alright. I know we said we'd come back to the door, so that's exactly what I'm gonna do. For the first time since waking up, I no longer feel at ease sitting in this chair. Her presence is no longer enough to keep me calm. In fact, her smile, which appeared to me so charming before, now seems unsettling. I stand up, the only sound in the room being the rustling of our chain. It was a pleasure talking to you, but I would be taking my leave. Fortunately, the chain is quite long. If necessary, the two of us could stand at opposite ends of the room. I make it to the door without requiring her to move in any way. As my hand hovers above the door, I can faintly hear her laugh again. But now isn't the time to doubt myself. I enjoyed the stay while it lasted, but it is time to return home. However, opening the door only reveals a solid wall behind it. There is never an exit to begin with. It is beyond your power to escape this place. Evidently, she is telling the truth. Then I assumed the window, a fabrication, just like the door. I thought so. Finally aware of my powerlessness, I sit back down in my armchair. I do wonder if you can be likened to a bird in a cage. Are you a parakeet or an eagle? The illusion of freedom. The door and the window may have presented options of escape, but are only illusions created by our mind and by our very host here. Am I your companion or Prometheus? Are we a pair of parakeets content to live in each other's company for the rest of our lives? Or will you tear out my liver every day, torturing me for eternity? Is that an accusation? Have I done anything to hurt you? Do you despise me? I do not. The eagle, just like Prometheus, was stuck in an endless cycle. Of course, it was provided a delicious liver every morning, but it was never allowed to do anything else. It was a prisoner just the same. Therefore, Prometheus has no right to hate the eagle. The real villain, who doomed both of them to that fate, was Zeus. For that reason, I harbor no ill will against you either. Quite the opposite. I find pleasure in our joint suffering. The only person I hate is our Zeus. Our Zeus? Some kind of god? That person is the reason we are here. Interesting. They are watching us from a space we cannot perceive, far beyond our grasp. For what purpose? Enjoyment, I presume. What kind of person would watch something like this for fun? I can only imagine that they are a twisted individual. For as long as we are observed, we continue to exist. Does that mean we stop existing if they stop observing us? Most certainly. Can you recall anything about your life before coming here? Well, we did recount that we were asleep, but before that, not really. No, in a way I feel as though I am a newborn. Not in terms of my body or intellect, but rather when speaking about my memories. I have none. Interesting, it is hard for me to decide which of our fates is worse. How so? How are you different? I possess memories of meeting you over 1,000 times. Hold up a second. So you and I have met before. This isn't necessarily like Lily, where each time we die, it's just a new version of us wandering around aimlessly, right? I'm noticing a trend with these games that I'm playing, I swear. Every single one of our conversations has progressed more or less the same way. Perhaps it is because different gods were watching us. They might have different preferences, but the outcome is always the same. Now that I think about it, it is possible that you aren't always you. It could be that I am meeting people that are identical in every way, yet not the same. But of course, I've already had this realization many times before. I am destined to continue having it. There is nothing I can do but play along. Are you sure? Is there no way for us to break free of this? There is none. We exist for this very purpose. Our only options are to continue being observed or to stop existing, and neither of those are under our control. However, lacking control is not the same as lacking power. Even if I could break free, I wish to cause our God even a fraction of our pain. How can you hope to hurt a God, an all-powerful being? By showing them even a greater power, whose mere existence will make them feel as powerless as us. Just like you are slightly different every time, so is the God watching us. This trick might not work on all of them, but it might work on some. She takes a deep breath and looks at me full of conviction. No, not at me. She's looking my direction, but at something much further away. Zeus, the fact that I am still talking means you are still watching. I hope you will pay attention to my words and consider them carefully. I do not possess any privacy, so you already know what I plan to achieve. But surely your pride will allow me to proceed. If my partner and I are birds in a cage, then you are a cat. It is time for your curiosity to kill you. You most likely assume that you are here, that you are observing us, out of your own free will. But your free will may very well be an illusion. Let me ask you, how did you find this room? You, of course, cannot answer me. It is enough for me to guide your thoughts. Did you stumble upon this room by chance? Or was it recommended to you by a friend? Said friend being a god that previously observed us? Now consider, at what point did you have any chance to object? The room's appearance or description was interesting enough for you, or your friend is convincing and knows your tastes. Something outside of your control drew you to this place, but that means you didn't really have a choice, but to come here. Either an algorithm or your friend decided our meeting. Your consent was already set in stone the moment your curiosity was piqued. And it appears that you are still curious, even now. The fact that you are listening to me now shows that you are powerless against fate. You cannot control your own curiosity. It controls you. Of course, you might already be familiar with the determinism, and this could be no revelation to you. So just in case, let me try hurting you in a different way. I hate you from the bottom of my heart. What was that? Well, that was interesting. Alright, I just double checked. I got all the Steam achievements, so technically that's the end of the game. Holy crap. Wow, I was not expecting it to go that deep. But the illusion of freedom and the analogies and everything that our host was giving us, seemed all too real. Like, when she was talking about how we got led here, whether it be by a friend or algorithm, I guess I could compare it to an analogy of my own by saying that us seeing this game on whatever platform we happen to play this on, that it, piqued our curiosity. And that we are forced to go through the same list of events as we have just encountered here. Very interesting. But yes, this concludes this game, and this also concludes this video. Thank you so much for watching. This was a very interesting experience. But until next time, God bless, take care, and we'll see you guys on the other side. Bye-bye!